Welcome to Hispanic Biz Success Stories. I'm Homero Galicia. We interview business owners to learn from them about their business and learn some good business skills, but more important, the story of the business. We trust you enjoy. Today we have a special guest, Mr. Martin Silva, the president of Silva Supermarket. Mr. Silva, thank you so much for
Thank you, Homero,
time.
for giving me this opportunity to come by and share part of my family's history here in El Paso.
Well, it's a thrill to learn your story. I've heard pieces here and there, but you guys been around a long time. When did the store begin?
Well, unofficially it started in approximately 1922 with my grandfather, Jose Felix Silva, starting a small store in South El Paso. And then in approximately 1925, he decided to move to a new location, and it was at that point that he named it Silva's Market. And it's been Silva's Market since 1925.
What was his first name?
Jose.
I mean the first name of the business.
Oh, Abarrotes Faro,
okay.
which means Beacon Groceries.
Okay.
And then it went to Silva Supermarket, or Silva's Market.
And so he ran the store until when?
He ran the store until my father started going into business, and my uncle, who was also named Martin, and that's my namesake.
Okay.
My father's brother, who was killed in World War II.
Okay.
But they grew up with my grandfather helping him, and little by little growing the business and getting bigger and bigger year by year.
Did your father have to serve in World War II also?
Yes, my father served in World War II in Germany and came back, luckily, and that's when he started his own Silva's Market. So at one time, there were two Silva's Markets in El Paso until my grandfather and father consolidated in one location.
Interesting. So your father started his own business apart from his father.
That's correct, yes. He always wanted his own store. And then I think they soon realized that it was better if they both worked together.
That's interesting.
And that's when they started the one store.
So where was your father's first store?
It was on McGoffin Street.
Oh, okay.
I don't remember the exact address, but it was close to the McGoffin home.
Okay.
And that was the store that I grew up in.
Okay.
And my brother and my sister for a time, before we moved, we used to live above the store while my mother and father worked downstairs with the business, 7 days a week.
Yeah. So you grew up in the business?
I grew up in the business, although I didn't spend much time working there because my father always said that he wanted me to get an education so he wouldn't work as hard as he did.
Oh, okay.
And so I got an education, and I try not to work as hard as he did.
And you have how many brothers and sisters?
I have a younger brother, Joe Angel Silva Jr., and my sister, Cynthia Manzanares.
Okay.
And Cynthia is with us in the store today.
Okay, fantastic. So it's you and your sister.
That's correct.
I know your brother, he went to, I guess, Notre Dame, then he went to Harvard Law.
That's correct.
And so after elementary school, what elementary school did you go to?
Well, we first went to Holy Family.
Okay.
Back then. And then my brother and sister went to St. Patrick's Elementary. I went to Bassett Elementary.
Okay.
And then we started at Cathedral High School.
And so after, what year did you finish Cathedral?
I graduated in 1967. And then proceeded to go 1 year to St. Mary's University in San Antonio. Realized I missed El Paso and came back and finished my undergraduate work at the University of Texas El Paso.
Okay. And what field did you study?
Business.
Okay.
Business.
Did that help you?
A little. The best help is actual in the field training, but it gave you a real good background. My college education did.
So when you came back, where was the store at that time?
It was at 909 South Stanton, right where the current Stanton Street Bridge is. And we were moved from that location about 1963, 64, due to the Chamizal Treaty that took the land in part with the Chamizal park was created. And so we moved to 1 block north on Stanton Street.
So I know you moved to the 7th in Stanton, because I guess that treaty took out 9th Street, is that?
It took out part of 9th Street where the bridge is at now.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And and that was, but you built a building there. Your father built a building there?
At Stanton and 7th, it was, we leased it.
Okay.
We leased the building, and my father was smart enough to sublease half the building to Cress.
Okay.
And so he subsidized his rent with that lease, and Cress was with us for, I'm going to say 15 years, and then they started having trouble. So it was at that time that my father took over the entire building, and we had a basement then with non-food items for many years.
Okay, you had that open to public?
Yes, yes, it was open to the public.
Okay. And so that store, what was unique about that store?
Well, I like to think it was a location. They say there's 3 keys to success in business: location, location, location. And we were at the right place at the, well, my father and grandfather were at the right place at the right time to really harness all the energy and the economic growth of Juarez and El Paso and the Mexican consumer, and of course those that lived in South El Paso that shopped with us for many, many years.
So your customer base was South El Paso and was Juarez?
South El Paso and Juarez for the most part. Of course, I look at it as it was a corridor. People would come in from Mexico, they would live in South El Paso for a couple of years. They would get an education, they would get a better job, they'd move to other parts of the city. But it was always new people and new energy coming in. And they'd climb the ladder and they'd move up and they'd move to other parts of town.
Many people still go to Silva's even though they don't live there.
We are fortunate that we still get a lot of customers from all across the city, and even Fabens, Canutillo. Maybe we get some from Las Cruces. I'm always surprised of people coming in and say, I've been in LA for 30 years, but I remember your store, and I wanted to come back and see how it looked.
What are the strengths of your store? What do people come to get mostly?
Well, we like to think it's our good prices. Our slogan is "Ya más barato solamente en Silva's," which translates to now much cheaper, only at Silva's. But we have one of the largest meat departments, carcass beef in town, and I think that that's one of our strengths. Of course, it's our location, and people are used to coming there, and we try to be competitive with our prices, so we can make it attractive for people to shop there.
I was talking to somebody the other day, and I mentioned I was going to interview you, and they were telling me about that, the value of the carcass beef. What is that?
Well, carcass beef, if you remember the Rocky show,
Right.
where he's a boxer and he's in the meat market punching on the carcass beef, that's carcass beef. You don't see that much anymore. The vast majority of the meat is box beef, which is already broken down. It's packaged specially so it'll last, and that's what the majority of the stores are using these days.
But you cut your own meat.
We cut our own meat, and I can guarantee you that our meat is generally no more than 3 days old since it's been slaughtered. So it's the freshest that you can get anywhere in town.
Wow, that's neat. So you're well known for that.
Yes.
And
yes,
you also make your own chorizo or something?
we make our own chorizo that we've done for years. Of course, we have different marinated meats, fajitas, both chicken and beef, that we specialize in, and all types of different cuts of meat that you can get in our store.
So you come back from college, your father has the store, and your grandfather's still alive, right?
Yes, he is. Yes, he is.
At that time. And when did your grandfather pass? Do you remember?
He died about 1963. I guess it was right before I went into high school
Okay.
that when he passed.
Okay.
So after I got out of college, I like to say I got a wedding ring in one hand and my apron strings in another.
Oh, you got married when you came out of college?
When I got out of college, and I started with my father, and that was 1972, and I've been there ever since.
And your wife's from El Paso?
My wife is originally from Las Cruces.
Really?
I was very blessed to meet her in high school here in El Paso, and we dated all through college, and as soon as I got my diploma, we got married.
Well, Cathedral's a boys' school, so how did you meet your wife in high school?
Through mutual friends. Mutual friends invited us to an Easter picnic, and I would be remiss in saying that it was April 10th, Easter
Really?
Sunday, that I met her, and we dated for 6 years, and then we
Wow.
married.
Fantastic. How many children?
We have 2 children, a boy and a girl.
Mm-hmm.
My son is in San Antonio, and hopefully one day maybe he can come back and continue. He'll be 4th generation.
Okay.
And my daughter is a United States attorney
Really?
in Las Vegas, Nevada.
Wow. That's proud of your children, I'm sure.
I'm very proud of them, yes, sir.
So what was your first job after college in the store?
I did a little bit of everything, a little bit of stocking, a little bit of bookkeeping, some personnel issues that I did, advertising. I never really got into the butcher department, so I can't say I did that. But just all kinds of odd jobs around the store to get to know the business, what was selling, markups, expenses, how to control expenses. So a little bit of everything.
So how long did you do that?
I'm still doing it to this day.
Okay.
It's just at a little bit higher level.
Okay.
That never changes.
And your father, now you had to move the store, or you moved the store. When did you build your new facility where you're at now?
Where we're at now was built in approximately in 1989.
Okay.
We had, in the other property, we had a leased building, and the lease was terminated. My father, through the years, had acquired this new piece of real estate, so we decided to build our own store, and we've been there since 1989. It's been going on about 27 years now.
At 1000 South Stanton.
At
is that right?
1000 South Stanton, that's correct.
You were telling me that he had to buy over many years the pieces of property to.
The downtown El Paso is very unique. Each block is made up of 20 separate lots. So one particular piece of property may be on one lot. Some property may be on 2 lots. So you would have to buy piece by piece by piece to acquire what we have today. And he did that over about a 30-year period.
Wow. And so you built your present location.
We built it from the ground up to my father's specifications.
Really?
Because he was very involved with every aspect of it. And I was more involved with running the old store until we got the new store built.
Oh, I see. So he was busy building.
He was busy building while I was busy running the operation.
Okay. And at that time, all of you, your brother and sister, were involved?
Not
as
so
well?
much my sister. She came in much later into
Okay.
our store, and my brother also came in much later into the business.
And this new store, how big is it?
Right now we have a sales area of about 30,000 square feet, and we have offices and storage of about another 6,000
Okay.
square feet. It's not very big by today's standard on grocery stores, but it is the largest store currently in South El Paso, grocery store currently in South El Paso.
I remember hearing years ago that your store had the busiest busiest store per square foot in
It was the largest sales per square foot
largest sales per
because that was our 909 South Stanton store.
Okay.
That was so small and we had such a large concentration of sales in it. That and this was much before Walmart, Targets, all the big box stores that are now. But that was quite a thing.
At that time, you had a lot of customers that were going back into Mexico because you were on the I guess on the west side of Stanton, and people were going back into Mexico after the day's work, and they'd go into the store and buy things
That's
to
correct.
take back. Why would they buy in the U.S. compared to buying in Juarez?
Well, you have to realize that back in the 50s, 60s, even early 70s, the Mexican consumer really wanted the American products. They were much better quality, better prices, especially in perishable items. And they wanted the name brands, the Hunts, the Campbell soups, Nescafe, were all very popular with the Hispanic consumer.
Yeah.
You could not get that product in Juarez at that time.
Really?
And so that's why they would shop so much in El Paso.
Okay, the Nescafe.
The
That's it.
Nescafe, yeah. Zest soap is another one that I remember.
Okay. And so, so you really serve both. Do you still have customers from Mexico that come over?
We still have a tremendous amount of customers that live in Juarez and work in the United States, or they live in Juarez and work in Juarez. Of course, times have changed. It's not that easy to cross the border like it used to be back when our store was much younger. And so we're not getting as many customers as before. There's also an issue with Mexican customs. Mexican customs does not let a lot of food products go from El Paso into Juarez. So that's another issue that has recently come up in the last several years.
Wow. How many employees do you have now?
Currently, we have 50 employees in our store.
So, being a store that has such a rich history, what is it like maintaining that?
The history of it?
The business, keeping the business.
The business, I mean, we certainly are faced with new challenges every day, new competition, new formats in stores. Even government regulations make it somewhat more difficult every year and every day to run a business. But we try to adapt and adjust as best we can. I try to see what competition is doing, and in some cases do the same thing. In other cases, because of our space limitation, we can't do a lot of stuff. But we try and stay competitive.
I remember your father. I remember he used to go to Luby's.
Yes.
For lunch all the time, and I know he passed away just a few years ago.
Yes, he's been gone 4 years now.
And your mother still?
My mother is still alive, 91, and I like to say she still thinks she owns the place.
And she goes to the store once in a while?
And she goes to the store maybe once a month, not as much as she used to.
And gives everybody a hard time?
And gives everybody a hard time and a piece of her mind and how it should be run.
That's great. That's wonderful you have that. And what does your sister do in the business?
My sister is currently doing all our non-foods purchases, all our small appliances, seasonal buys, Christmas, Valentine's, Easter, all our Tupperware type items, kitchen utensils, kitchen pans. She's in charge of that department. And a little in the office. She oversees the office. So she's quite involved.
And I know your brother-in-law works.
My brother-in-law is my partner, my right-hand man.
Okay.
When I'm not at the store, like while I'm doing this interview, he's working. And when I'm out playing golf, he's working.
Yeah.
So we have a good working relationship.
That's
that
really
way.
nice. It's a family business.
From the top to the bottom, it's a family business, yes.
And you also, I know that you were involved in cooperative purchasing things. You set up some kinds of organizations. What kinds of things did you do?
Well, I think I'm most proud of Tri-State Associated Wholesale Grocers, which was formed with the help of my father and other independent grocers. And this was formed back in the early 1950s to supply the needs of the independent grocers in El Paso. They formed a cooperative. And that cooperative existed up until about the mid-1980s when it lost its biggest member. I was chairman of the board at the time. And we had to close the warehouse at that time because we couldn't get any more business to sustain our operation. And so I like to say my father, with the help of my father, started Tri-State, and I, as chairman of the board, closed it
Okay.
some 40 years later.
Wow. You know, I a little different. I had a conversation years ago with Mr. Navar, Farmers Dairy, Juan Navar, and he was telling me that when they started their dairy, it was the corner grocery stores that kept them alive because the larger institutions wouldn't buy from them because their competition was Borden's and Price's and wholesale. Did you buy from farmers?
Farmers Dairies was our first private label dairy supplier. For years and years, we had Silva's milk. We had our own cartons, and it was cartons then. It wasn't the plastic container that you see now, but it was a cardboard container. And I believe we were Farmers Dairy's largest customer for many, many years. And then unfortunately, farmers got out of that business and we had to switch suppliers. And I can't tell you the number of customers that told me, how can you do that? My kids grew up on Silva's milk.
Isn't that interesting?
So that's a great story.
But you helped that business grow because
Sure.
it was usually the Hispanic owned businesses that helped the Hispanic manufacturers grow their businesses.
Well, if you're in El Paso, you do a tremendous amount of your buying from local vendors, like farmers. Quality Produce is another one that comes to mind that we purchase from. And there's any number of tortilla manufacturers, other produce guys that we buy from. So we try to buy locally. We buy a lot of local honey that we have in our store from the local farmers.
So are you the largest store in South El Paso?
In South Central El Paso, we are the largest grocery store. There are a couple of other small independents that are still down there. And our next largest competitor would probably be Food City in Fox Plaza. Mm-hmm. And then the nearest Walmart would probably be at Bassett Center. That comes to mind.
Did Walmart affect your business?
Walmart affected our business quite a bit. They currently have, I believe, 26 stores, if you include the Sam's, the Walmart supercenters, and neighborhood stores.
Wow. And
they have more planned. So there are many competitive issues that have affected us.
So how do you survive in that environment?
Well, we're unique. We have our unique niche, I guess you could say,
mm-hmm.
for so many years. We have a very loyal following, thank goodness. And we try to adapt. We try to do things that the big boys are doing to stay relative and to stay competitive. And it's a challenge every day. There are more issues besides competition in South El Paso right now. So we're dealing with those.
Because you're independent.
We're independent. We're only one store, although we're kind of all a fraternity, I guess, because I know all the other independents in El Paso for the most part. I've known them since I've been in the grocery store. We're not only competitors, but we're friends. And we currently all buy from the same warehouse, a warehouse that I'm on the board of directors also.
Okay.
Affiliated Foods out of Amarillo.
Okay.
They're our current supplier. Much like Tri-State, they're a cooperative. We own the business. We're all owners. And so it's to our advantage to shop from them for the majority of our groceries.
Well, that's got to be a challenge with these big boxes coming in and with huge parking lots, because everybody drives. But a lot of your customers don't drive to your place.
We still have a tremendous pedestrian traffic because we have access to the bridge right there. We're right next to the Stanton Street Bridge. We've always had a tremendous pedestrian traffic crossing into Juarez. We're on the southbound bridge, so it's mainly going into Juarez. But we do have some people, as they're coming across, will stop and shop. But they mainly drive.
You're right adjacent to the bridge into Juarez, and in the back of your store is the border highway, So you're right there on the border.
Well, I like to say that if I got on the roof of my store and hit a 9-iron, I could put it in Juarez
Yeah.
pretty quickly. That's how close we are.
So you are a definitely a border business, but you know both sides. You know both sides of the border pretty well.
I think so. Since we've been there so long, I say that our employees, 99.9 of them speak Spanish, very little English, because that's our customer.
That's right.
So when we try to cater to them, we try to have some Hispanic products in our store, although a large Hispanic department doesn't make sense because of our proximity to the border. It's very easy to just walk across and shop over there.
Some other things you got involved in. I know that your father was involved in you with the development of the first Spanish language television station in El Paso.
KINT, Canal 26, we along with 6 other prominent business people here in El Paso, were very fortunate to get involved with the ground floor of that and Univision. So for many years, my brother and myself were on the board of directors at Canal 26, along again with 6 other individuals. And we started bare bones operation. We grew it, and we're very fortunate to sell it. And everybody got out, and it passed on to Entrevision. And I still think Canal 26 is the #1 Spanish language station in El Paso.
Yeah. So what year did that sell?
That was back in probably the early 90s that we sold it.
So you took what, about 12 years, 15 years to build that?
Yes, something like that.
That was quite a story, because you guys did bring Spanish language television to El Paso.
And then we were fortunate that we had the opportunity to buy a AM/FM radio property.
Okay.
So we combined not only TV, but the radio aspect of it. And that's what made it so attractive to Univision and ultimately Entrevision that purchased us.
So what's it like to be on a board of 7 business owners trying to run one business?
It was actually, we all got along. We all got along for the most part. But it was an older board. I think my brother and myself were the youngest members of it. They didn't want to work as hard, and the opportunity came up to sell, so we did.
Well, and your brother, I know, was very involved in that, being the attorney for the...
He was the attorney for the corporation, kind of got the ball rolling and got the other investors in, and turned out to be a very, very profitable enterprise.
So you guys have branched out besides doing the groceries. So let me ask you about what it's like growing up in a business as a young person. Your habits are different than other people.
I think my work habits are much different. That a lot of people don't understand the amount of time it takes to run your own business. You have a tremendous amount of rewards that come with it. But working at one time, I worked 7 days a week. We were open on Sunday. We're not currently open on Sunday. And I saw a tremendous work ethic from my mother and my father and my grandparents also. I like to say that to this day, the last 2-week vacation I've taken was when I got married, and I took 2 weeks for my honeymoon.
Really?
That's the last 2-week continuous vacation I've taken in all this time.
So you were constant.
Well, I'll take a few days off. I'll take a week off, but I've never taken 2 weeks together since 1972.
Wow. Wow. But you like it?
I love it. It's a different challenge. There's no 2 days that are alike. The people, the issues that come up in your own business, the problems that have to be solved, just a totally different day every day.
But you're one store. How does one store survive in our changing economy?
That's a great question. One store can, I think, be relative and be successful if they service the right population, if they do the right things. But at some point, you have other factors that come into play, especially in El Paso. Certainly one being the border issues, border security. The flow of traffic is not what it once was. You have long bridge waits. You even have security and waits going south into Mexico. And that's all detrimental to the current business. And that's evolved and changed over the years. It was more or less free trade when my grandfather and father started the store. There was not so many rules and regulations. There was not so many taxes. And I think in El Paso, that part of it, the taxes, the property taxes have gotten quite large. Expenses have gotten quite large. And government regulation, that's not getting into the government regulations with the federal government on labeling laws, country of origin regulations on produce and meat, where do they come from, bookkeeping regulations, a whole range of other factors that impact the small business. And I still consider our store a small business.
Let me ask you about, as your father was growing the businesses, was access to capital ever an issue?
Not for us, fortunately. We were able to always maintain a very good balance sheet, and most banks had absolutely no problem lending us money. That's not the case for every business, because a lot of businesses, I like to say, the banks just like the Cadillac loans with the more prosperous businesses. I think it's gotten harder in the last several years to obtain capital and continue your business. But as long as you maintain a healthy balance sheet and show profit, generally you don't have any issues obtaining
But you know
capital.
that world very well. I mean, you served on the bank board, didn't you?
I was fortunate to serve many years on the Chase Bank Board here in El Paso. Learned a lot, met a lot of wonderful people that were also on the bank board. Done other boards that I've served.
Which one, for example?
Well, I've served on the Boy Scouts board. I served on the Public Service Board for 4 years. That was a tremendous experience. I was on the Hispanic Grocers Association. That was out of an organization out of California. I was on the United Way board and board chairman for 1 year. So I've tried to stay involved with the community here in El Paso and the different boards. Of course, I've already mentioned the Tri-State Wholesale Grocers, which is something I did for many, many years. And I continue to get involved, but not as much, because I'm starting to slow down.
What's the value of serving on community boards?
I think the business connections and the people that you meet, you get a little bit more knowledgeable of how things operate here in El Paso, whether it be business or a non-for-profit. And El Paso is still a poor community. And I think if we can get involved and help in different ways, that's certainly a plus. More people should get involved.
But it's also contributing to the community.
Oh, most definitely, yes. Try to help as much as we can, and our store gets daily calls for donations, especially this time of year. There are a lot of very well-worthy charities, churches, schools, organizations that are not having an enchilada supper. They need turkeys to help feed the poor. So we try to do as much as we can whenever we get called on.
But you're very much a I'd say a pillar in the community because you've been around. People know you. People don't have to ask any question when they say the name Silva Supermarket. Everybody knows where it's at. It's right on the bridge, right on the border, and you're serving both sides of the border. So let me ask you about the larger issues of border regulation and border traffic, and how is that all? I mean, you're trying to run a grocery store, but you've got all these two worlds that you've got to deal with. How does that affect your business?
Well, it's been in the last several years that one issue that's impacted us is housing. We used to have a much more vibrant and growing South El Paso. We've lost a lot of public housing. We've lost a lot of apartments, and for lack of a better word, tenements have been torn down. There's not that many single-family homes in South El Paso. The city and private developers are attempting to bring more residents to South El Paso, but I think it's an uphill battle because you need a whole host of restaurants, entertainment, stores, shopping that have to be also brought in to attract people to move to downtown.
Wow, I remember in the late '60s, South El Paso was considered, but I guess a square mile or had 10,000 residents at one time.
And it was called the Golden Horseshoe. The land north and south on Santa Fe, east and west between Santa Fe, Stanton, and then you had Overland, San Antonio, that formed a horseshoe that was the economic driver of downtown. And that was driven by, in my opinion, the Hispanic shopper coming across from Juarez, and the Hispanic shopper that lived in El Paso that would shop, and that's changed.
Yeah, in those years, people would walk across from Juarez, go to do their work or whatever they're doing in El Paso, and come up one street, and on their way back, they'd go down another street. That's where all the stores were.
That's the flow of traffic. That was the Golden Horseshoe.
And
it was north on Santa Fe and south on Stanton.
And your store was south on Stanton.
We were on south on Stanton, so we're fortunate again, the location, that if you're walking across or driving across and you wanted to keep your meat or beverages cold, you would stop at our store and then just a quick trip over the bridge. Of course, that quick trip is no longer a quick trip.
No, I hear there's 2-hour waits now sometimes on the bridge.
Sometimes it's even an hour wait going into Mexico.
Which we never used to see.
Which we never used to see before.
Well, and the other historical piece was I remember riding the streetcar that used to go into Juarez and El Paso, and that was something we used to do. It was easy to get on and go over to Juarez and come back. And people used to get off right in front of your store or get on right in front of your store.
And we'll never see those days again because of security measures, for one. You now need documentation. Rightly so. I have no problem with that. I just wish that the federal government, because of our unique situation here in El Paso, the sister city of Juarez, would have more inspection, would have more agents to properly speed up and inspect every car that they wanted to make it much more easier. But it's hard. It's another issue that we face.
Because you see that every day.
Oh, we every day, yeah.
So how do you keep the grocery business alive with all these dynamics, all these social dynamics outside of your control?
Well, one way is, of course, we're not as big as we used to be. And we don't have as many people as we used to have. When we opened this store on Stanton Street, we had 120 employees.
Wow. And
we currently have now about 50. So that's one way that you do it. You just have to scale back and cut your expenses, tighten your belt a little more, and try to move on forward.
Has the customer have their buying habits changed?
Uh, I think we're seeing more ready-made, ready-to-eat food, delicatessens, prepared foods. In that sense, it has changed. People aren't cooking like they used to. We haven't seen those days now for, I'd say, 20 years. It's gradually been to more prepared foods, more eating out, and people are just, they're the mother and dad are working, and mom doesn't have time to cook like she used to, like the old days.
So a lot of your marketing is to address that need?
Some of it is. Unfortunately, we don't have as much space as I'd like where we could put in a food counter, prepared foods, delicatessen, or even sublease to maybe a fast food chain where we could have that there. And it's not to say we couldn't do it. Maybe in the near future we'd do something like that.
But then people that do cook, do make their meals, especially traditional, they want traditional goods. You still provide all of that, right?
We still provide it, but not near to the extent like we used to. And
really?
I'll use beef tripe as one example for your menudo, especially around New Year's, Christmas, very traditional. We would sell truckloads, and we don't nearly do that anymore.
Really?
One reason might be is that the tradition of cooking menudo has not been passed down to the new generation.
You know, that's interesting, because I know that my wife had made menudo the other day and had to go and shop for the right ingredients. And people do tamales around around Christmas too. You sell the corn husks and all?
We sell the corn husks, we sell the pork butt, we sell the red chili. But once again, a truckload of pork butts is now 100 cases. Two truckloads of corn husk is now maybe half a truck, because it's again a tortilla, homemade tortillas. We're not seeing that like we used to.
Did you ever make your own tortillas?
My mother did, but my mother-in-law, God bless her, did. But I never did, and those are traditions that aren't being passed to the younger generation now.
Well, that affects your market.
And that affects our market, yes.
And so what's the future of your business?
The future, you know, in all honesty, is looking grim. Not only for my store, but I feel for other independents like myself, and there are still a handful in El Paso, that we're facing an uphill challenge because of the competition that's coming in. Just about every store now has some grocery department, whether it's milk, wine, beer, bread, the essentials. You've got a lot of different outlets. So it is a challenge, and it's going to continue to be a challenge, where, you know, maybe we'll see the end of Silva's, you know, I don't know.
So, I mean, here you are, a seasoned business owner with a mature business, and you have to do your purchasing, you have to do your expenses, you have to be efficient, you have to manage your staff, train your staff. You don't have much turnover, right? You have
No, not at all.
Your employees have been with you for?
We have several that have been with us 30 years.
Wow. So you have loyal customers, you have loyal employees that keep you going, but you have to read all these other signs, not only the business signs, but the economy, the regulations, the federal laws, and all of that affect you very directly.
Well, as any business owner in El Paso, you have to control your expenses. Some you can control, some you can't. Utilities, taxes, even to some extent insurance, workers' comp. At one point I can say that workers' comp insurance would have cost us $250,000 a year to have it.
Wow.
And it was either pay that or not stay in business. So and those are issues that we face every year.
People complain about having to pay insurance for their employees. That's a cost.
That to me is one that stifles economic growth, because our store keeps the employee level under 50, so we don't come under the mandates of Obamacare, because that would be a prohibitive expense to our store, healthcare, but it's very important.
So a lot of what you're doing is having to manage large expenses that are things like taxes and benefits, and
they're out of my control.
yeah.
And that's what it comes down to. That's why I try to be an advocate in El Paso for issues that I'm very passionate about. When I see waste and abuse in a governmental agency, I like to speak out.
And you have been vocal.
And I have been vocal.
You write letters to the editor?
I'm on a first name basis with the editor, and I try to get one out at least once a month. And I speak to our city representative. I know a couple of them personally. Matter of fact, one used to work in our store.
Really?
Yeah, Lily Limon, Representative Lily Limon.
Really?
Worked in our store when she was in college. So
I didn't know that. Good friend, good lady. So now you're slowing down a little?
I'd like to think I am. Yes, it's been a long career for me. I'm not working as hard as I used to. Thank goodness for my brother-in-law, and my sister. I can take a little time off. But it's still my name on the store, and I take great pride in our store. For those that have been there, they don't realize how big it is, and I think how nice it is until you've actually visited our store. And you have to maintain it, and you have to be there to be in order for it to be maintained.
So you have a son that might have an interest in this.
I have a son that is currently in San Antonio, and maybe in the very near future he would come and take over. But it's difficult to pass along a business like ours. We'd have to start from the ground up because he's never really been involved in it. But he's a smart boy, and I have no problem in handing it over to him.
What is his background now? His training?
He's a financial consultant with Toyota.
Wow.
In San Antonio. And he graduated with a business degree also out of Trinity University in San Antonio. So he's got the background.
So he knows numbers?
He knows numbers, yes, and that's very important.
Well, let me ask you though, but your business isn't as romantic, is it?
Not really.
Yeah.
Not really. It's buy and sell, basically, is what it comes down to. And manage your people, manage your inventory, manage your cost. And to me, be there and shake hands and kiss babies.
Well, let me ask you, what has it done for you personally to spend your life with a family business?
To me, it's been very rewarding. It's enabled me to do any number of things, give my kids a great education, number one. Live very comfortably, number two, even though I work long hours. And the number of people that I've met through the years is incredible. The number of people that know me and know our store is incredible. The secretary here that I spoke to for 5 minutes, that she used to shop at our store, I get those stories all the time.
And people still do?
And still do, yes, and I just love it.
Well, because see, one of the things people want, a consumer wants quality, and they want consistency, and and things don't change, and they're happy.
Well, the Hispanic consumer is very, very loyal. They're very, very loyal to certain brands, and you're right, they're very, very loyal to quality because they have a limited amount of money to spend. And if they buy something new and they don't like it, that's very detrimental to their budget. So if they're used to a brand, they're very brand loyal, and they stick with it. That's been the hallmark of the Hispanic customer. And I also like to say that they not only have a sweet tooth, they have sweet teeth, because they like the sugar products. They like anything sweet, and I think we all do. But health-wise, it's not the best for you sometimes.
Well, you know, we do have a high incidence of diabetes in our
Yes, we do.
community, and you know, I know that I have to watch that that sweet tooth. So if I sat down with you and took a list and asked you to give me a list of the products that you sell, to try to identify, I guess, the local Hispanic consumer, would that be different in other parts of town?
It might be in certain product categories, especially years ago. We're talking about lard.
Yeah.
Morel lard, canned milk, Nescafe, instant coffee, Zest soap, for our couple that come to mind, where you don't find that in north of the freeway as much sales.
Right.
Or pork butts, the tamale leaves, the husks. You know, you don't find those things. It's a little different market, and again, very small sugar-free section.
Really?
Because you know, like I said, the sweet teeth. It used to be not very much frozen foods, because everything was cooked at home.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't have that much frozen foods. Now that's expanded 100-fold. That's not the issue anymore.
Well, let me ask you, you've also seen the whole grocery industry change. What are some of the biggest changes you've had to endure?
The one that comes to mind is one-stop shopping. You go to one store and you buy everything, from clothing, small appliances, health and beauty aid, toys, gardening supplies, just one-stop shopping, and that's what you get in the big box stores.
And how does that affect you?
Well, we have to try to carry more items, number one, and then we have to be more competitive price-wise to match the big stores.
That's hard to do?
That's very hard to do. One advantage we have is, and if you think about it, the bigger the store, the more you have to go walking around to buy your items. So it's good and bad. A smaller store, it's a quicker shopping experience if you wish, and we're all short on time. So that helps us somewhat, but then we can't compete with the number of items that other stores have for sale.
Well, you're really in a unique situation. I mean, you have a loyal clientele. You have a product line that's very unique and specific. But you've got these superstores that are provide a lot of competition, and they're growing, they're expanding, and habits of our communities are changing.
The main habit is unwillingness to travel more than 5 miles or 10 miles to do your shopping. So it is about convenience. It's about time. It makes it very difficult for a retailer like myself that only has one location to draw from other parts of the city, because they have so many more stores closer to where they live or work, that it makes it a much quicker shopping experience.
So is the fact that your name has been around for 85 years?
90.
90 years. Does that add value?
I think so. It's because we're a known quantity, and we're consistent. We've been there for so long. We're part of the fabric of, I'd like to think of, downtown South El Paso, because many more have come and gone that were much smaller than ourselves.
But you've seen the South El Paso change.
In losing population, I've seen it change. It's starting to become more commercialized with all the downtown development that's going on and continues to grow. Hundreds of millions of dollars are being pumped down there, basically for entertainment value, not so much for residential, unless it's private dollars that are doing the residential.
Well, I find myself talking to a seasoned business owner who knows the socioeconomic, environmental issues of our community, changing demographics, and you manage a business in a difficult time for your business. What advice do you have for people who think about going into business?
Number one would be do an apprenticeship in something that you'd like to do. If you'd like to be in a grocery store, work in a grocery store. If you'd like to be in a clothing store, work in a clothing store. Do something for a while to get a feel for it. See if you like it. Number two is be well capitalized when you start your business, because that can be a failure too, that you're undercapitalized. And regardless of how good a budget you think you can formulate to start your business, you can never get all the unforeseen expenses that might come up. So be able to be flexible in that amount. And then be prepared to work hard, because nobody can take care of business like you can. And be passionate about it. If you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life.
So you've had a good life.
I've had a very good life. If I had to do it again, I'd do it just the way it's panned out for me.
Well, you know, it's a real pleasure to talk with you, Martin. I remember your father. I respect him so much. I years ago, of course, I wanted to talk to him and perhaps interview him, but I didn't have the opportunity. He was already, I guess, semi-retired.
Yes.
But I was fortunate to know him a little bit, not well, but a little bit. And your family has been a great contributor to our community over the years, and you're still a very powerful name in community, Silva Supermarket. So thank you so much for taking time to share your story with us. It's been a real pleasure.
It's been a pleasure for me too.
Well, it's really been a delight, sir. Thank you so much. And thank you for watching. Have a good day and keep us tuned in. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
You bet.